Pali canon speak for the Buddha, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and said, "Bhante, this is half of the spiritual life, that is, good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. Say not so, Ananda, say not so. This is the entire spiritual life, Ananda, that is, good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. When a monk has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade, it is to be expected that he will develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path." And as we know, the Noble Eightfold Path is the fourth of the Buddha's Four Noble Truths, and is no less than the path leading to the cessation of suffering. So in tonight's talk, we are in quite lofty territory in trying to unpack exactly why the Buddha had exalted something that we might consider so mundane as friendship to such a level that it is the entire spiritual life. So the first thing I think that's quite interesting out of that is that despite the full enlightenment and the level of attainment that had been achieved by the Buddha, he still had friends. He was a friend to many, many people. He had many friends. It wasn't like he had gone beyond friendship. In a way, those friendships were cultivated to an incredibly exalted degree. And possibly first and foremost amongst those friendships was Ananda, who was his attendant for many years, and in fact had been was his cousin. They were very, very close. So I think we just need to sort of, in a way, unpack and reflect on our experiences of friendship, and then sort of see if we can find the components that can make that statement make a bit more sort of tangible sense. So in a way, that was what I was reflecting on, and this is what I've tried to sort of unpack for you this evening over the next 25 minutes or so. So one of the places that I started, bizarrely, was with Aristotle. So Aristotle outlined that there are three types of friendship. He said that there were friendships of utility, so friendships with people that are just simply useful to you. That there were friendships of pleasure, so you could have friendships with people that just amused you in some way, or kept you amused. And then there were what he described as good friendships. And these friendships were characterized by mutual respect and admiration. So as part of my reflections, which is something that we do in Triratna anyway, well, indeed, friendship per se is one of the 6 distinctive emphases of Triratna. So this particular Buddhist branch that we are members of here. It's not that it's not important in any others, but it is given a particular level of importance within Triratna. And there are sort of 2 directions, if you like, of friendship that are considered equally important within Triratna. And that is vertical, i.e. forming a friendship with somebody that you would consider as slightly more advanced on the spiritual path than yourself, if you like, somebody that you can learn from. But also horizontal, it's equally important that we form friendships with people who are at the same level as us. So these sorts of types of friendships are given particular emphases and considered highly important to members of the Triratna. But I was reflecting on the sort of friendships throughout my life, long before I had come across Triratna and long before I'd become a Buddhist. I've had lots and lots of friendships. I'm getting on now, so I've had time to have lots and lots of friendships. Most of us have had lots and lots of friendships. Few of us still have friendships. The number of friends that we had at school, over time, they'll have been lost. We may have one or two that remain friends, but over time, they'll have been lost. Similarly with, if we went to college or university or our early workplaces, we may have made friends, they may have drifted, they may have fallen by the wayside. And on reflecting on my own history of friendships, I realised that the vast majority, not all, but the vast majority were of the first two of Aristotle's classification. They were of utility, they were useful to me, or they were of pleasure, or some were of both. And what I realised on reflecting a little bit further on that was that many of the friendships were actually underpinned by my own sort of state of development at that time. So I remember, for example, in my teens and early 20s, how I looked was of vital importance. I wanted to look like heroes of mine that were members of very loud and very hairy heavy metal bands of the 1970s. And I wanted my friends to look the same. So I sought out friends and made friends with people who looked appropriate and who sort of supported my look. We had other things in common, usually drinking alcohol or whatever. But beyond that, the friendships no longer exist. I don't have any of those friends with me anymore. I don't have any contact with them. And thinking about it in a way that underpinned where I was at that time, it made me remember a talk I gave some time ago on that experience is created by mind. In a way, my life was a fabrication of an image in my mind of what I should be like. And my friendships sort of reflected that projection. It wasn't actually what I was like as an individual, because at that time I didn't know what I was like as an individual. I'd kind of made something up which I quite liked, and then I constructed a world and friendships within that world in accordance with it. And this carried on actually as I got older and sort of outgrew that phase. I realised my sexuality as a homosexual gay man, and for many years I had a wide circle of primarily other gay men. So there was a sense of, again, finding friends who supported some sort of projection or almost kind of very limited self-knowledge of myself. So in a way, looking back, what my friendships seemed to sort of reflect was the level of unintegratedness that I had. I didn't know myself. I was making things up about myself. I had some levels of insight into some aspects of myself, but it wasn't wholehearted. So then we turn to the sort of third of Aristotle's classifications. We turn to the good friend, friends that is classified by mutual respect and admiration. And in a way, this is where Aristotle and the Buddha start to come close. But it's where the Buddha, I think, takes a slightly different angle. In as much as the Buddha doesn't talk about good friends, the Buddha talks about spiritual friends. So before kind of explaining how we can get from a concept of spiritual friends to being the whole of the spiritual life for us being a Buddhist life, let's just kind of remind ourselves of what is Buddhism. What is Buddhism about? But there's various ways of classifying that. So you could say that Buddhism is largely about fully realizing the conditioned nature of all things. Or put another way, which I nearly always put in just about every talk I give, because it's one of my favorite aphorisms, is all things arise in dependence upon conditions. All things arise in dependence upon conditions. So the conditions can give a rise to galaxies, to Milky Ways, to universes. They can give rise to our bad mood on a Monday morning when we have to return to work and it's raining. And they can give rise to our friendships. So all things arise in dependence upon conditions, including friendships. We could also say that, or define Buddhism as being a set of practices. So the practices of meditation, ritual and devotion, study, ethics, for example. So 3 of those we've already done this evening as a Buddhist Sangha. So when we came together, the first thing we did was to salute the shrine. That is a ritual and would fall into the category of ritual and devotion. After that, we meditated. And after that, you're now listening to a talk. We listen to talks most weeks. So a talk given by somebody is an aspect of study. There are other aspects of study. You could study the suttas of the Pali Canon. That would be highly recommended. You could study other Buddhist books. That would be very good, highly recommended. You could listen to other talks on the facility of free Buddhist audio. That would be a very good thing for us all to do. So these would all fall into the category of study. And obviously there's the practice of ethics as directed by the 5 precepts that we take on when we become mitras. You could also consider that Buddhism in the broadest sense consists of 2 great foundations, 2 great wings, if you like, that make the bird fly. It's another analogy. And these are wisdom and compassion. And some of the things that we do are more aimed towards the development of wisdom. Some of the things that we do are more aimed towards the development of compassion. So for example, if we take the meditation, so this evening we did a mindfulness of breathing meditation. That meditation would fall into a practice of wisdom. That meditation gives rise to insight. So the act of focusing on the sensations in the body associated with breathing, causing us to have a concentrated mind, allows us to have a calm mind. And within a calm mind, we can start to get to know ourselves better. We can see our tendencies. We can see our reactions. We can just, in a way, get to know ourselves more deeply and more thoroughly. The metta bhavana, on the other hand, like we did last week and we will be doing next week, is much more considered a practice of compassion. And it is important as Buddhists that we have both of these. To become a fully kind of functioning Buddhist in the world, we need to be working on both our wisdom and compassion to prevent us from becoming a bit too lopsided. So an overemphasis on mindfulness, for example, can lead us to become a little bit self-obsessed. An overemphasis on metta bhavana, for example, can allow us to become a little bit ungrounded. So it's important that we have both practices active. Of course, the metta bhavana is also, the translation of metta bhavana is the development of loving kindness. And that the development of loving kindness is more than just feeling nice about ourselves and about the world and about others. The development of loving kindness is the basis of spiritual friendship, which is the gift that we are discussing this evening. And Sangha, our founder, describes metta in the following way. He says that metta is usually translated as friendliness, but it is friendliness raised to the highest conceivable pitch of intensity, a sort of supercharged friendliness. So friendliness raised to the highest pitch of integrity. So this is the territory that we are kind of aiming at in the development of spiritual friendliness. And in order to be and to have spiritual friends, I would say that from my own experience, this requires a degree of our own personal integration. We need to be authentic to ourselves and others. We need to be truthful, and we need to be honest. So we could say, in summary, that to make friends, we need to be a friend. And it's not by chance that we make friends, which contains the verb to make. We make friends by some sort of action on our own part. Now, I was listening as part of my kind of reflection and thinking about this. I listened to a very good talk by Padmavajra. And in that talk, I'm sure you won't mind me plagiarising a bit. Padmavajra was here with us a few weeks ago, so many of you will know him. He gave us a list of some of the activities that we can undertake in order to sort of be a friend to others, in order to make friends. The first thing that Padmavajra invites us to do is to meet or to turn up. It's important, if you want to make friends and be a friend and appreciate friendship, that you meet other friends, that you go to the place where those people are. So we're all here at Sangha night, and we'll all be invited shortly into smaller groups to discuss this, or just to have a discussion, whereby we'll be able to meet each other. It's one of the failings of Zoom. It's a marvellous facility, but it's one of its failings that we're not actually meeting in person. But we can try our best with what we have to just turn up and be there and meet. The other great thing that we can do to cultivate friendships is to listen. And the other great thing that we can offer to friends is to listen. It is an amazing gift to be heard. If you're trying your hardest to explain something kind of tricky about yourself, you're finding it awkward, it's an amazing gift to feel that somebody has heard that. So we can all try and listen to what friends are saying so that we can hear them. And once we've heard them and understood exactly what it is that they need or want, we can help them. We can try to the best of our ability to help them with what it is they need or want. The other great thing, gift of forming friendship, is that we have an ability to speak the truth to each other. That there's such a level of trust, there's such a level of common interest, that we can fully speak the truth without fear or trepidation. We can just say what needs to be said. And since that can sometimes lead us into slightly hot water, as we're not as developed as we might think we might be, we can forgive. When things get wrong, we can forgive. We all make mistakes, everybody does. So as we get forgiven by friends, we can forgive them. And the last thing Padmavajra says that we can do to make and enhance spiritual friendship is to rejoice in our friends. he says that Western psychology is quite focused on suppression of emotion as a very common cause for psychological problems. But this is generally considered suppression of negative emotion, suppression of anger, suppression of some early traumas. But actually, suppression of positive emotion can equally be harmful. It's lovely to hear nice things said about oneself. It's lovely to say nice things. If you have a generous impulse to say something positive about somebody else, say it. Don't suppress it. Rejoice. Rejoice in the qualities of your friends. Rejoice in them often, and have your qualities rejoiced in equally. So in terms of the gifts of friendship, there are many, 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 many gifts in spiritual friendship. There's longevity was one. I realised the other week I was out for a walk and I bumped into a fellow order member I used to work with several years ago and I hadn't seen for, well, several years. Often that would have been, in the old days, thinking about friendships of utility or friendships of pleasure. That could have been quite an awkward encounter as you sort of dance your way around. Oh, I can't avoid them. What will we talk about? It was quite the opposite, actually, in this particular case. It was lovely to see him, and within no time at all, we were having a conversation of some degree of significance. It only lasted 5 or 10 minutes, but it was lovely. It was just like something was woken up that was just, partially hidden, had never died. Such was the fact that two practicing Buddhists can have a period of separation from each other, but when we come back together, it's just like we've picked up, like we'd never left off. There's exemplification. Exemplification is a major thing. It's a Sangha vastu, and it is a way of growing and strengthening the Sangha. And there's something really palpable about being around two spiritual friends that is incredibly attractive. There's a palpable warmth and love and beauty around two very deep, very good friends, just having a chat or a laugh or a cup of tea or whatever they're doing. So having friendships like that is an attraction, a very strong magnetic style attraction for other people. And in a way, that's why it becomes a way of growing and strengthening the Sangha. Spiritual friends can give you confidence. And confidence you could even go as far as to say fearlessness. Fearlessness was a gift of the Dharma that Sadharaja talked about last week. Friendships can give you that. I mean, I know that from my own experience. I remember being absolutely petrified about going on my first solitary retreat. I was going to be by myself for a week in a little hut in the middle of nowhere. And I was completely petrified. One level of me knew that it was good for me. One level of me was petrified about it. And the way that I kind of got over myself and went and did it, was because I knew my friends, my spiritual friends, friends who were more advanced in the spiritual path than I was, said that I was ready and that it would be a good thing for me to do and that I would enjoy it. And I did enjoy it. So when I say that this, it gives you a gift of fearlessness, I don't mean a kind of warrior type fearlessness, like going out like Genghis Khan and conquering Asia or whatever. I mean a fearlessness in a way to face up to yourself, to face up to your own fears, an internal fearlessness to just be honest about what is going on. And a true spiritual friendship, of course, leads to, as it were, a mutual transcendence. The barrier between self and other is at its weakest between friends. And that continues to weaken the more friends we have and the more our individual friendships deepen themselves. In the Pali Canon, spiritual friendships, two spiritual friendships between two enlightened beings, I think there's 3 enlightened beings actually, was described as being like milk and water blended. So they were both there, but they were indistinguishable. In other ways, you could say that it was like one mind and 2 bodies. One mind focused or infused with Dharma, infused with wisdom, infused with compassion, going in the same direction, one mind, but existing in 2 bodies. So, being aware of the time, finally, I'd just like to sort of summarize in a way the kind of deconstruction and reconstruction that I've been doing this evening, that we could say that friendliness is the embodied expression and practice of both wisdom and compassion. We could go on to say that friendliness in the manifestation is the manifestation in the world of an effective Buddhist practice. And on that basis, it can be seen as the whole of the spiritual life and as the greatest of gifts. So at that point, I shall draw to a close and invite you all to go off into your groups and have a lovely discussion and make some new friends or deepen some existing ones. And the leader of your group will already have a couple of questions to suggest. So my suggested questions for you this evening are: 1, do you feel that you have benefited from your friendships? And the second question is, do you feel that you are doing enough to cultivate your friendships? So, a little bit over time, but not too much. So, enjoy your groups. Thank you.